baby of origin. The baby was born without any senses and could not even move. With no means of survival, all he had was his power to impart his soul. Those who touched him and had his soul imparted to them were healed of injuries, diseases, emotional scars, and other such wounds. The people treated him like a treasure. At the same time, all of the knowledge, abilities, and talents the people had acquired while their wounds were healing became ingrained in the pieces of the baby's soul and would return to the baby upon their deaths, which in turn healed the baby himself. He regained light, he regained sound, he regained the freedom of his limbs, and he noticed the people were calling him by the name of the god that they worshipped. He decided to make that name his own. Schrift. A general term for the special abilities bestowed by Yuhavak and a select Quincy's among the Sternritter. By taking Yuhavak's blood into their own body, an inherent ability that matches that Quincy's character will blossom within them. Each Schrift is a letter of the alphabet, matching and symbolizing the first letter of that unique ability's name. There are Ritter with unknown Shrifts, such as Shaz Domino, as well as rumors of those who have inherent abilities even without Yuhavak bestowing them as Schrift. Shunko, the name of the fighting style that mixes Hakuda and Kido. The user's back and shoulders are enveloped in a dense Kido, and they fight by exploding the Kido into their limbs. Because a powerful explosion occurs when the technique is activated, the Shosoku uniforms that Shunko users such as Yoruichi Shihoin and Soifon wear come with nothing covering the back and shoulders. Also, the user's spiritual pressure can change the element of the technique. Vandenreich. The Quincy Empire ruled over by Yuhavak. Its predecessor was the Lichreich, said to have existed sometime in the past. 1,000 years ago, Emperor Yuhavak led the Sternritter of that era on the Lichreich's invasion of the Soul Society, but he was defeated by the 13 Court Guard squads led by Shigekuni and Ryusai Yamamoto, and they were placed in a life-or-death crisis. With nowhere to go, the Quincy's fled to the Seirete, as that was the last place the Soul Reapers would be looking for them, and they constructed a Reichi space within the shadows, renaming themselves to the Invisible Empire. Resurrection. A sword release, better known as a Resurrection. An Arankar Zanpakuto seals their original hollow abilities into the shape of a sword, and by performing Resurrection, that Arankar becomes their true self and can use their true power. It's been said that there's a second stage of Resurrection, but the details are unknown. In the sense that it involves storing the power of a Kompaku into the shape of a sword and then releasing it to acquire a greater power, a Resurrection can be considered essentially identical to a Bankai. Despite this, the Quincy's did not steal any of the Arankar's Resurrections, and that acted as a hint that helped Kisuke Urahara develop his Shineyaku pills. Shineyaku, a miracle drug developed by Kisuke Urahara to obstruct the pillaging of Bankai. A contact-absorbed pill that only reacts to people with Bankai. The absorbed pill permeates into the Kompaku, where the small amount of hollow power within it causes the instant hollification of the Bankai. Everything about hollows is poisonous to a Quincy, as they have no antibodies towards them, and so the hollified Bankai becomes poison to them as well, forcing them to release the stolen Bankai if they wish to live. A Soul Reaper who uses their Bankai right after reclaiming it might experience the side effect of something resembling a Hollow's mask appearing on them. Jinka no Jutsu, a technique to strengthen yourself passed down through the Werewolf clan. The Werewolf clan was sent to the Beast Realm for the sins they committed during their lifetime, yet they continued to stave off death even as animals, and then retained those forms upon returning to the Soul Society. By temporarily severing the chain of sin that binds them, they can gain a tremendous power by returning to the human form they had before receiving the punishment of the beast. That is Jinka no Jutsu. The user offers their own heart to temporarily attain an immortal body, and as long as they are in that state, no amount of damage will be enough to extinguish them. However, once the effect of the technique wears off, the user turns into a complete animal instead of turning back into their werewolf form, making it a technique one can only use once in their life. Quincy Vollständig, a technique to enhance a Quincy's abilities. It's different from the Quincy Let's Steal that Soken Ishida was devoted to. It allows a Shrift's abilities to be released more effectively, and it dramatically increases your combat power. The principal expression of its emergence is typically the form of a star-shaped ring on the head and wings on the back, but its appearance can have noticeable differences depending on the user. It was in this form that Kyoge Opi, who held the J Shrift, was able to take a Quincy's fundamental ability to enslave Reishi and push that Reishi gathering to its limit with Sclavarai, displaying even the absorption of a hollow. Bankai, Kinshara Butodan. The Bankai of Kinshara, the Zanpakuto belonging to the 13 Court Guard Squad's Squad 3 captain Rojuro Otoribashi. When the Bankai is invoked, the shape of Kinshara changes from a golden whip into what appears to be crafted strings, transforming into hands conducting a dance troupe of a dozen dancers. Rojuro conducts the dance troupe, and their dances display various illusions based on the performance. The true origin of the illusions is music, the sound itself. When the deceptive melody snatches the opponent's heart, the observed illusions will transform into real phenomena that can cause damage and eventually lead to death. Bankai, Taken Tachikaze. The Bankai of Tachikaze, the Zanpakuto belonging to the 13 Court Guard Squad's Squad 9 captain Kensei Muguruma. Tachikaze is a Zanpakuto that causes an explosion with each slash of the sword, and Taken Tachikaze is a Bankai that packs the power of those explosions into the fist. Its shape can be altered to respond to different battle conditions. As long as the fist remains in contact with the enemy, the power of the explosions will continue to be pounded in excessively and infinitely. Bankai, Hakano Togame. Rukia's Ice and Snow type Zanpakuto, said to presently be the most beautiful in the Soul Society, is Sode no Shirayuki. Its true ability is to lower the user's temperature below the freezing point, and causing all molecular movement within them to cease. When its Bankai is used, what resembles a lake of frost manifests both underfoot and in the sky, pierced through the center by a pillar of frost emanating from Rukia herself. As that happens, frost runs up to the tip of the blade, and anyone struck by that blade has their entire body frozen and weathered away into icy dust. Ryokyu and Seirete. The distance between the Ryokyu and the Seirete is so great that it would take a regular Soul Reaper a week using Flash Step. Belonging to the Ho-Ho branch of the fundamental Zankensoki fighting styles of the Soul Reapers, Flash Step is a movement technique in which the speed is dependent on the user, yet considering that even Squad 0 uses a Tenchurin as their usual mode of transportation, it is clear that the distance between the two is considerably great. Additionally, there's a 72-layered protective wall between the Seirete and the Ryokyu, suggesting that frequent travel between the two is not expected. When Squad 0 returned to the Ryokyu with Ichigo Kurosaki, Kokaku Shiba went off of the heavenly roadmap given to her by Ichibe Hyosabe when she launched the Tenchurin. Sanpo Kenju. The name of Squad 11 Lieutenant Yachiru Kusajichi's sword, or perhaps a descriptor for the mysterious sword beasts that exist permanently behind Yachiru's sword. The front beast, covered in soft-looking fur, is Fluffy, and the back beast, who resembles a skeleton wrapped in cloth, is called Bone Bone. Shuhei Hisagi once made an attempt to interview Yachiru for the Seirete Bulletin, but those two names was all he could end up getting out of her. It's unclear if they're actually a Shikai, or maybe some sort of living organisms. Shrift V. The shrift bestowed to the Sternritter Gremi Tumu. It represents the ability of the dreamer, the visionary, to turn fantasy into reality. Guanayo Lee also introduced himself as V, Vanishing Point. However, Guanayo Lee was no more than a being created with Gremi's ability. Due to the degree of risk and danger he posed, Gremi was imprisoned in Zilburn, said to be within a cage sealed by a special barrier that Yu Havok created. Getsuga Jujicho. Getsuga Tensho is a technique that takes in the user's spirit energy at the moment of their slash, and then releases highly dense spiritual pressure from the edge of their blade to enlarge the slash and send it flying. With Zangetsu now existing as a pair of swords, Ichigo has mastered a new technique. He pulls on the Zangetsu in his left hand to generate a first horizontal Getsuga, and then swings down the Zangetsu in his right hand to release a second vertical Getsuga that slams into the first one. When that happens, spiritual pressure is poured into the horizontal Getsuga as well, turning the Getsuga into a large cross that advances towards the enemy. Its power is tremendous. Yu Havok's asleep. Only when Yu Havok sleeps does he recover his existence as the father of the Quincy's and accumulate power. Ashvald possesses the same power to share that Yu Havok does, and is an existence that could be called his alter ego, donning the mask of the ruler and acting as the king in Yu Havok's stead when he sleeps. All who have had Yu Havok's soul shared with them have their power and soul returned to Yu Havok upon their death, where it is absorbed and turned into nourishment for Yu Havok. Barriers of Ryokyu. The clothes Ichigo Kurosaki wore when he finished his training at the Ryokyu and was returning to the Seirete were woven from the bones and hair of Squad Zero and known as an Oken. The resistance and defensive capabilities of an Oken were essential to breaking through the 72-layer barrier that exists between the Ryokyu and the Seirete, as well as to protect Ichigo from the friction caused by descending at such a high speed. But because of them, a hole was created in the barrier that could not close for the following 6,000 seconds, and therefore allowed Yu Havok a chance to create a path to the Ryokyu. Cannon under the Squad 12's barracks. Foreseeing the situation, Mayuri Kurotsuchi secretly built a replica of the Shiba clan's Flower Crane cannon under the Department of Research and Development in response to Squad Zero's actions. Its main difference from the original Flower Crane cannon is that while the real one fires spirit cores and tenchurin from its barrel, the replica directly launches the actual barrel-shaped vessel after it is mounted on a pedestal. It can only be used a single time due to issues surrounding durability and acquiring energy for the launch, since the Flower Crane cannon is made through the secret engineering of the Shiba clan and thus can't be copied perfectly. Bankai, Senbon Zakura Kageyoshi. The Bankai of Senbon Zakura, the Zanpakuto belonging to the 13th Court Guard Squad's Squad 6 captain Byakuya Kuchiki. Senbon Zakura is a Zanpakuto where the sword breaks apart into 1,000 blades, and those hovering split blades take on a resemblance to flower petals, and Senbon Zakura Kageyoshi emerges as rows of blades from the ground, scattering like flowers to attack the enemy. It is said that there are hundreds of millions of blades, and they slice up the enemy's entire body from every direction possible in an attack that allows for no blind spots. Kido, one of the Soul Reaper's principal Zanken Soki fighting styles. By reciting a chant, they can control their spiritual pressure to activate a technique. They are all assigned a number and they come in two types: Hado, which specialize in offense, and Bakudo, which results in restrainments. The technique's power may differ depending on the user's talent and how they conduct the chant, such as abandoning it or reciting it afterwards, etc. It's magic that's mainly managed by the Kido Core, though it is possible for Soul Reapers to develop them on their own, such as was the case with Nanao Issei, highly gifted with Kido as she is, when she developed Hakudan Kapeki to defend against a Quincy's penetrative powers. Lichtreich. Over 1,000 years ago, there was an empire where the monster-hunting Quincy family who specialized in fighting hollows lived together. Using powers different from a bow and arrows, Yu Havok conquered and ruled this empire of light. Many of the Quincy had lost friends and family to the hollows, and thus they confronted the hollows with conviction to avenge them. But Quincy's exterminating hollows leads to the disruption of the balance of the three worlds. The threat of an eventual conflict between the Soul Reapers and the Quincy's led to Yu Havok invading the Soul Society, but he was defeated by the 13 Court Guard squads led by Shigekuni and Ryusai Yamamoto. Schutzstaffel. Lige Barrow is said to be the first Quincy Yu Havok bestowed a shrift to. Gerard Valkyrie and Pernita Parnkajas already possessed power before being bestowed anything, and thus were not bestowed any power by Yu Havok. And Askin Naklevar is the only one to have been brought along from the second invasion of the Soul Society. These four alone comprise the elite squad that is known as the Schutzstaffel, that operates directly under Yu Havok, and their power is immeasurable. A womb. The Cage of Life created by Kiryu Hikifune of Squad Zero. Hikifune produces a tree of life from their hand, and then feeds it her own spiritual pressure to raise it into a birdcage-shaped jail that traps her enemies. Any attempt to destroy it with attacks made of reishi will turn that reishi into nourishment for the Tree of Life's development, and allows it to instantly restore itself. For Quincy's, who fundamentally gather the reishi around them to operate, escape from the womb is not easy. Visored. A group of Soul Reapers who have also stepped foot into the domain of the Hollows and acquired Hollow abilities, exceeding the power limits of their souls. Composed of 8 former officers of the 13 Court Guard squads and Kido Corps, their names are Shinji Hirako, Hiyori Sarugaki, Kensei Muguruma, Mashiro Kuna, Risa Yadomaru, Rabu Aikawa, Rojuro Otoribashi, and Hachigen Ushoda. They had been turned into hollows due to Sosuke Aizen's machinations, but managed to survive and hide away in the world of the living thanks to Kisuke Urahara. After the battle with Aizen, they each made their own decision to either remain in the world of the living or return to their post in the Court Guards.